Ambassador Jack Reed shifted his weight from one foot to the other as he stood at the back of the massive Senate chamber. The room buzzed with the sounds of hundreds of alien species talking, clicking, and humming to each other. Jack tried not to look bothered by the stares and whispers aimed his way. "Look at the human," a tall, blue-skinned alien said to his friend. "I heard they can barely survive outside their home planet without special help." "Primitive apes," his friend replied with a sound like bubbling water. Their version of laughter. Jack pretended not to hear them. After 6 months as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Senate, he was used to the mockery. Humans were the newest members of the interstellar community and came from what the aliens called a Class 12 Deathworld, a planet so dangerous that most species couldn't last a day there without heavy protection. The Senate President, High Counselor Vress, tapped a long, spindly finger against his speaking crystal. The sound rang through the chamber, and the noise died down. "The Senate will now discuss the matter of the Orion system," Vress announced, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. 4 planets rich in minerals needed for faster-than-light travel. Jack stood up straighter. The Orion system was where humans had built their first off-world colony. 200 people lived there now, mining the rich asteroids and setting up farms on the 3rd planet. "The Dominion claims rights to the system based on historical exploration," said Ambassador Toll, a reptilian alien with scales that changed color as he spoke. "We discovered it first, centuries ago. The Union has the strongest fleet in the sector," countered a floating jelly-like creature. "We can best protect these valuable resources from pirates and rogue elements." One by one, the major powers of the galaxy made their claims. The Dominion, the Union, the Coalition, the Republic. Each had hundreds of worlds under their control and mighty fleets of warships. And then there was Earth, 1 planet, a handful of ships, a single colony that most of the Senate didn't even know existed. Jack pressed the button requesting to speak. A small light flashed on the president's console, but Vress ignored it. "Perhaps we should consider dividing the system," suggested a furry ambassador from the Coalition. "The outer planets for mining, the inner ones for military bases." Jack pressed his button again. Again. Vress ignored him. "The human wishes to speak," said an old alien named Mox, one of the few who had been kind to Jack. "Let him have his turn." Vress sighed, all 6 eyes rolling at once. "Very well. The Senate recognizes the human." Jack walked to the speaking platform, feeling hundreds of alien eyes on him. "Thank you," he said. "I would like to point out that Earth has a colony in the Orion system. 200 people living on." 200, interrupted Toll with a laugh. "The Dominion has cities with billions. What claim could you possibly have?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. "Our colony has been there for 5 Earth years," Jack continued. "We have invested." "The human doesn't understand galactic politics," Vress said, cutting him off. "This matter is for the major powers to decide." More laughter filled the room. Jack stood there, face burning, as the Senate moved on to other matters. As he returned to his seat, his communicator buzzed. "A message from Earth, URGNT. Dominion ships spotted near our Orion colony. Possible hostile intent." Jack looked up at the Dominion ambassador, who caught his eye and smiled. A predator's smile. They weren't just ignoring humanity. They were already moving against them. And nobody in this room full of powerful aliens seemed to care. Jack hurried down the long, curved hallway of the Senate building. His small room, given to him as an afterthought, sat at the far end of the diplomatic wing. The message from Earth kept flashing in his mind. Dominion ships spotted near our Orion colony. Possible hostile intent. He needed to call home. Now, his room was simple compared to the grand chambers given to other ambassadors. Just a bed, a desk, and a communication station. Jack tapped the screen, entering the secure code for Earth Command. General Tom West's face appeared on the screen. His expression was grim. "Ambassador Reed, the situation has changed," the general said. 3 Dominion warships have entered orbit around Orion 3. They're demanding our colonists leave within 48 hours. Jack's heart sank. They can't do that. We have rights, Toe. Rights mean nothing without power to back them up. West interrupted. Our nearest ship is 10 days away. The colony has no defenses against warships. What about the Senate? Have you reported this? We filed a complaint, but West hesitated. The Senate committee said they would review it next month. Jack slammed his fist on the desk. Next month. The colony will be gone by then. That's why I'm calling. The president wants you to address the full Senate tomorrow. Make them understand what's happening. Jack ran a hand through his hair. They don't listen to me, General. I'm just the ape from the Deathworld to them. Then make them listen, West said firmly. This is your job, Ambassador. After the call ended, Jack paced his small room. He needed a plan, something to make the Senate take humanity seriously. But what? His communicator beeped again. This time, it was Admiral Bell from the Colony Defense Force. Ambassador, Bell's voice was tight with stress. The Dominion ships have launched landing craft. They're saying our presence violates their historical claim to the system. Jack frowned. What about the colonists? Bell's face darkened. They're refusing to leave their homes. I've ordered our security teams to protect them. But we're outnumbered. If the Dominion decides to use force. Just then, the feed crackled with static. Jack heard shouting, then the sound of energy weapons. Admiral Bell. The screen cleared momentarily. Bell was no longer at his desk. Someone else grabbed the camera, pointing it out a window. Jack saw Dominion soldiers in black armor marching through the colony's main street. Bodies lay on the ground. Then the feed cut completely. Jack stood frozen, staring at the blank screen. Anger built inside him like a storm. This wasn't a diplomatic issue anymore. This was an attack on his people. His communicator chimed once more. It was an official Senate notice. The full Senate will meet tomorrow to vote on the final partition plan for the Orion system. The human representative is allotted 5 minutes to address the chamber before the vote. Request for additional time denied. 5 minutes. 5 minutes to convince hundreds of alien species that humanity deserved respect, that their colony shouldn't be given away to the very people who had just attacked it. Jack opened his personal files and began working. He had one chance to make them understand what it meant to come from Earth. One chance to show them why they should never have underestimated a species that evolved on a death world. As he worked through the night, reports kept coming in. 12 colonists confirmed dead, 28 injured, 43 missing. Jack's hands shook as he prepared his speech. Tomorrow, the Senate would hear from Earth, and they would never forget it. The Senate chamber was packed. News of the Dominion's actions at the human colony had spread, turning what should have been a routine vote into the most attended session of the year. Jack stood at the entrance, watching the alien representatives take their seats. 5 minutes, a Senate aide reminded him, not bothering to hide the contempt in his voice. Not a second more. Jack nodded, his face showing nothing. Inside, his heart hammered against his ribs. He hadn't slept. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally neat suit was wrinkled from the long night of preparation. High Counselor Vress called the session to order. Before we vote on the Orion System partition plan, the human representative has requested time to address the Senate. As a courtesy, we have granted 5 minutes. Snickers rippled through the chamber as Jack walked toward the speaking area. The translator podium, a small platform at the edge of the room, was where minor species were expected to stand. It was where Jack had always spoken from before, but not today. Instead, Jack walked past the translator podium and stepped directly into the central speaking circle, a raised platform reserved for only the most senior and respected Senate members. Gasps echoed through the chamber. 2 security guards, massive aliens with 4 arms each, moved to intercept him. The human must use the translator podium, one guard said, reaching for Jack's arm. Jack didn't move. He looked up at the guard, who stood 3 feet taller than him, and said calmly, "I will speak from the circle." The guard grabbed Jack's shoulder, intending to force him back. Jack planted his feet and didn't budge, surprising the guard, who was used to moving beings twice Jack's size with ease. "This is outrageous," shouted Tull, the Dominion ambassador. "Remove him at once." Vress raised a hand. "Let him stay. It will be amusing to watch the human embarrass himself. Your 5 minutes begin now, Ambassador Reed." Jack took a deep breath. Then, to the shock of everyone present, he began speaking in perfect galactic standard, the complex language of the Senate that most species needed translators to manage. "Yesterday," Jack said, his voice clear and strong, "soldiers from the Dominion murdered 12 human colonists on Orion 3. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared above the speaking circle, showing footage of the attack. The Senate watched in silence as Dominion troops fired on unarmed colonists. "We came to you with concerns," Jack continued. "We filed the proper complaints. We followed your rules." His voice hardened. "And you ignored us." "These are internal Dominion matters," Tull interrupted. "The humans were on territory that—" "I am speaking," Jack said, not raising his voice but somehow cutting through Tull's objection like a knife. The Dominion ambassador fell silent, surprised. Jack looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, stalks, and sensory organs of the gathered aliens. "You mock us," he said. "You call us primitive. You laugh at our weakness. You say we come from a death world, as if it's something shameful." He stepped forward, his presence somehow seeming to grow larger despite his modest human size. "What you fail to understand is that coming from a death world isn't our weakness. It's our strength." Jack tapped his device again. The hologram changed to show Earth, blue and green and beautiful, but also deadly in ways the other species could hardly imagine. "Let me tell you about the world that shaped humanity," Jack said. "And then, perhaps, you'll understand why it was a mistake to dismiss us." For the first time since Jack had arrived at the Senate, there was no laughter, no mockery, only silence, and the growing sense that something had changed. Jack stood firm in the speaking circle as the hologram of Earth rotated slowly above him. The Senate chamber remained unusually quiet. "Earth," Jack said, his voice echoing through the vast room. "Class 12 Death World. A planet where over 80% of the wildlife can kill you, where the weather itself is a weapon, where the ground splits open and mountains explode." He tapped his device again. The hologram shifted to show Earth's natural disasters, hurricanes tearing through cities, volcanoes erupting, floods washing away entire towns. "Most of your species," Jack continued, looking around the chamber, "evolved on worlds with stable climates, predictable seasons, few natural predators." His eyes found the Dominion ambassador. "You never had to adapt, never had to change, never had to fight to survive each day." Jack reached into his pocket and removed a small flask. He opened it and took a drink. "This is water from Earth," he said. "It contains minerals that would be toxic to most of you. But humans, we drink it every day." Murmurs spread through the chamber. One of the scientific advisors waved a scanning device at Jack, then looked at the results with all 4 of his eyes widening. "The human speaks truth," the scientist said. "That liquid contains compounds that would kill most of us within minutes." Jack nodded. "On Earth, we adapted. When the environment tried to kill us, we survived. When predators hunted us, we learned to hunt them instead." The hologram changed again, showing early human history, small bands of humans hunting massive creatures with nothing but sharpened sticks. "Do you know what happens to a species that evolves on a world that constantly tries to kill it?" Jack asked. "It becomes very, very hard to kill." He walked to the edge of the speaking circle, closer to the Dominion delegation. "When threatened, most species in this room have one response: run away. It's a good survival strategy. It kept your ancestors alive for millennia." Jack's expression hardened. But humans, we have two responses, fight or flight. And unlike most of you, we often choose to fight, even against overwhelming odds. The hologram shifted to show human conflicts throughout history, battles against stronger enemies, desperate stands against impossible odds. You think we're weak because we're smaller than you, because our skin isn't as thick, because we can't breathe certain gases or survive extreme temperatures without help. Jack shook his head. What you don't understand is that physical strength isn't what made humans the dominant species on Earth. It was our adaptability, our creativity, and most importantly, our refusal to give up. He tapped his device once more. The hologram now showed images from the human colony, people working together to build homes, plant crops, establish a community on a distant world. Those colonists you killed. Jack's voice grew quiet, yet somehow more intense. They were the gentlest of us, the optimists, the builders. They went to Orion to create something new, not to fight. The Senate remained silent, many representatives shifting uncomfortably in their seats. You attacked our colony believing we would run away, that we would abandon our homes because a stronger power demanded it. Jack's eyes blazed with controlled anger. That was your first mistake. He looked directly at High Counselor Vress. Your second mistake was thinking that a species from a death world would be afraid of you. For the first time since Jack had arrived at the Senate, not a single representative was smirking or whispering jokes about humans. Instead, many were beginning to look worried. Let me tell you what happens, Jack said, when you corner a species that evolved as prey, but learned to become predators. This is absurd. Ambassador Toll finally spoke up, his scales flashing red with anger. The human makes great claims, but offers no proof. Words mean nothing without demonstration. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jack simply nodded. A demonstration. Yes, that's fair. He looked around the Senate chamber. I propose a simple test. Any representative may join me in the speaking circle. We will stand. No sitting, no leaning, no movement. Last one standing wins. Laughter erupted around the room. Such a simple challenge seemed ridiculous. I accept, Toll said, moving toward the circle. His reptilian body stood 7 feet tall, with powerful legs and a sturdy tail for balance. The Dominion will show how weak humans truly are. 4 other representatives joined them, a massive 4-armed delegate from the Union, a graceful avian from the Coalition, a sturdy rock-like being from the Mining Guild, and an amphibious senator with powerful legs. The rules are simple, Jack said. Stand still. No movement. No support. When you cannot continue, you leave the circle. High Counselor Vress looked amused. Very well. This contest begins now. The first hour passed with little difficulty. The 6 representatives stood in the circle while the Senate discussed other matters. Occasionally, someone would glance over, expecting to see the human faltering. But Jack didn't falter. He stood perfectly still, his posture relaxed yet firm. By the second hour, the avian representatives' legs began to tremble. Their species was built for flight, not for standing in one place. With a frustrated chirp, they stepped out of the circle. How is he doing this? Someone whispered loudly enough for all to hear. Humans are supposed to be weak. Jack's voice carried across the chamber. On Earth, we have hunters who stand motionless for days, waiting for prey. We have soldiers who march for weeks carrying heavy equipment. We have workers who stand for 12 hours straight in factories. The third hour saw the amphibious senator leave, their skin drying out despite the humid conditions in the Senate chamber. Humans evolved to persistence hunt. Jack continued, still looking completely comfortable while the other representatives began showing signs of strain. We would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, even if the chase took days. By the 4th hour, only Jack, Toll, and the rock-like being remained. The Senate had stopped all other business, captivated by the unexpected demonstration. The Mining Guild representative finally sat down with a heavy thud. Impossible, they rumbled. Your muscles should have failed hours ago. Now only Jack and Tull remained. The Dominion ambassador was visibly struggling, his scales now a pale yellow, a sign of extreme stress in his species. What few understand about humans, Jack said, his voice still strong and clear, is that we evolved for endurance, not strength. We cannot win a sudden burst of power against most species, but we can outlast almost anyone. As the fifth hour began, Tull's legs buckled. He caught himself before falling, but it was enough. He had moved. This proves nothing, Tull hissed as he stepped from the circle, humiliated. It proves everything, Jack replied. He was sweating but showed no other signs of discomfort. And there's something else you should know about humans. The hologram above him changed again, showing ancient human hunters working together to bring down creatures many times their size. We are one of the few species in this Senate that evolved as apex predators, Jack said. Most of you evolved as prey animals, with instincts to flee from danger. But humans? We evolved to be the danger. The Senate chamber had fallen completely silent now. The mocking laughter was gone, replaced by a growing unease. And there's one more thing you should understand about predator species, Jack said, his eyes meeting Tull's. We are very, very protective of our own. Jack's 5 minutes had long passed, but no one in the Senate chamber dared interrupt him now. Even High Counselor Vress sat quietly, all 6 eyes fixed on the human. You believe humans are weak because we need protection from certain environments, Jack continued. What you fail to understand is that we adapted by changing our environment instead of changing ourselves. He tapped his device again. The hologram showed the history of human technology, from simple stone tools to modern spacecraft. While your species were comfortably evolving on peaceful worlds, humans were fighting a daily battle to survive. We turned our weaknesses into strengths. We built tools. We harnessed fire. We created medicine. Jack's expression darkened. And because we spent most of our history fighting each other, we became very, very good at war. The hologram shifted to show human conflicts throughout history. The Senate watched in horrified silence as scenes of human warfare played before them. Ancient battles with thousands of warriors, modern conflicts with devastating weapons. For most of your species, Jack said, war is rare, something to be avoided at all costs. He looked around the chamber. For humans, war has been our constant companion. We have fought over land, over resources, over ideas. We have created weapons specifically designed to kill our own kind. Many Senate representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Let me show you what humans can endure, Jack said. The hologram changed to show human medical procedures, surgeries performed without anesthesia in ancient times, modern soldiers continuing to fight despite severe injuries, athletes pushing through incredible pain. The average human can lose 40% of their blood and survive, Jack explained. We can function with broken bones. We can endure pain that would send most of your species into shock. He tapped his device once more. The hologram showed humans in extreme environments, climbing the highest mountains, diving into the deepest oceans, surviving in scorching deserts and frozen wastelands. Our bodies can adapt to almost any environment given time. Hot, cold, high altitude, underwater pressure. Where most species would die, humans simply adapt and carry on. Jack turned to face the Dominion delegation directly. Ambassador Tull, your ships attacked our colony because you thought we would run away. You thought we would abandon our homes out of fear. Jack's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. That is not what humans do when threatened. He tapped his device one more time. The hologram now showed Earth's military forces, ships, aircraft, and weapons. We are a peaceful species by choice, not by nature, Jack said. We prefer cooperation, trade, and diplomacy. But when those fail, he let the sentence hang in the air as the hologram displayed more human weapons. The attack on our colony has already been answered, Jack stated. While I've been speaking, 3 human warships have entered the Orion system. The Dominion forces there have been given a simple choice: withdraw or be destroyed. Gasps and shouts erupted across the chamber. Tull jumped to his feet, scales flashing bright red. "This is an act of war," the Dominion ambassador shouted. "The Dominion has 1,000 warships. The humans have barely a dozen." Jack smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You still don't understand, do you? It's not about how many ships we have. It's about what we're willing to do with them." He stepped closer to Tull, looking up at the much larger alien without a trace of fear. "Humans have a saying. The most dangerous creature is not the strongest or the fastest. It's the one that's willing to fight to the death." Jack's voice carried throughout the silent chamber. "And when it comes to protecting our own, there is nothing humans won't do." The Senate chamber remained silent as Jack stood in the speaking circle. The hologram above him now showed the human colony on Orion 3, not as it had been during the attack, but as it had been before. Families working together, children playing, a community building a home among the stars. "We don't want war," Jack said, his voice softer now. "Humans have seen enough war on our own world to know its cost. We came to the stars hoping for something better." He looked around at the assembled representatives, meeting their eyes one by one. "What we want is simple: the same respect given to any other species in this Senate. The right to keep what we have built. The right to protect our people." High Counselor Vress finally spoke. "You speak of peace, yet you have sent warships." Jack nodded. "Because that is the only language the Dominion left us. But it doesn't have to be this way." He turned to face the entire Senate. "I offer a choice. A new beginning." The hologram changed again, showing a map of the Orion system. "The human colony remains under Earth's protection, non-negotiable." Jack's tone made it clear this point was not open for discussion. "But the rest of the system, we're willing to share it, to work together with any species that comes in peace." Murmurs spread through the chamber: surprise, confusion, and for some, a grudging respect. "Humans understand cooperation better than most," Jack continued. "On Earth, we survived by working together, by combining our strengths to overcome our weaknesses. We want to bring that same spirit here, to the stars." He tapped his device one last time. The hologram disappeared. "So here is humanity's proposal. The Senate recognizes Earth's colony and its right to self-defense. In return, we will work with all peaceful species to develop the resources of the Orion system for mutual benefit." Jack's gaze found Tull. "And we request that the Dominion withdraw its forces immediately, before our ships are forced to act." Ambassador Tull's scales had turned a pale blue, a sign of uncertainty in his species. He looked around the chamber, sensing the changing mood. "The Dominion," Tull began, then hesitated. "The Dominion will consider withdrawing, pending formal negotiations." Jack nodded. "A wise decision." High Counselor Vress rose from his seat. "The Senate must vote on this matter. All in favor of recognizing the human claim to their colony on Orion 3 and establishing a new framework for cooperative development of the system, indicate now." Lights began to appear on the voting board, one for each species voting in favor. At first just a few, then more, until almost 2/3 of the Senate had voted to support the human proposal. "The motion passes," Vress announced, sounding slightly surprised. "Ambassador Reed, it seems your demonstration has been persuasive." Jack bowed slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. Earth looks forward to working with the Senate in a spirit of mutual respect." As Jack left the speaking circle, representatives who had mocked him just hours before now moved aside, creating a path for him. No one laughed. No one whispered jokes about the primitive ape. Instead, they watched him with new eyes, with caution, interest, and in many cases, with the first stirrings of genuine respect. Outside the chamber, Jack's communicator beeped. It was General West. "The Dominion ships are retreating," West said. "Whatever you did in there, it worked." Jack looked back at the Senate chamber door. "I just told them the truth about humanity." "And what truth is that?" West asked. Jack smiled slightly. "That we're the most dangerous species they've ever met, but also the best ally they could hope for." As he walked away, Jack knew that everything had changed. Humanity would never again be the laughingstock of the galaxy. They would be respected, and perhaps just a little bit feared.